Shabbat Shalom Yasharala. Once again, Numbers 10:10, we blow the trumpet at his Salam feast days. All right. We're on Torah portion, part 4. This is covering Genesis chapter 16 through 21, which is Abraham's walk after he's been given the covenant between him and the Most High. So that's where we're going to start off. So let's just hop into it after this prayer. Let's pray all together, Yasharala. Regardless if you're watching this later, ask for guidance. All together, Yasharala. Heavenly Abba, Haya in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We thank you for allowing us to be here, a part of your feast day, a part of your Shabbat, a part of your day of rest. We are thankful to be here resting with you, Abba. Words cannot explain it. The fact that you have extended this gift, wake up every day, and I acknowledge how blessed I am. I pray that each and every person that is a part of this prayer can acknowledge every day the blessings that you have put on us, regardless of the struggles. We understand whatever trials and tribulations are done for the sake of your kingdom, for us to be reproved. So we ask for strength in those times. We have to for strength in our everyday walk, Abba, that you give us a light that will always shine a path in this dark world, that you push away anything that's not of your righteous kingdom, that you allow us to be armored in the full armor of Haya, that we are not touched. And if we are touched by any demonic forces, we are equipped to battle them. We stand here in the light of your glory on your day of your holy festivities, and we thank you. Please protect and guide this message through the Ruach Kodesh. And we pray to walk like Mashiach and to become like Mashiach one day, in a sense of being your anointed, being your chosen, and being your first fruits. All in all, Haya, in Yasha's name, amen. Let me get amen, Yasharala. All right, so we're going to jump to the timeline. We want to make that every week thing. I love to try to use as much visuals as possible. Who doesn't love visual learning? So last week we stopped right at the covenant of Abraham, and we talked about Babel, Nimrod. So let's zoom in now. Once again, this is if it loads today. Come on now. All right. This is called World History Chart in accordance with the Bible chronologically. So we have covered Nimrod. Oh, this is killing me. Like, won't let me zoom in. It's frozen right here, but this is close enough. Not going to complain. We were at Nimrod right after the flood, and all the way Abraham. This actually has Abraham's life quite a bit after Nimrod, and but they're look like they're only using the Bible. If they use the book of Jasher, most likely they would have pushed Abraham's life a little bit forward. But we're right now, so last week was from Nimrod, Babel, and Abraham, Lot. Now we're right before Isaac's birth. So this week we are going to be starting off right before Isaac's birth, right into the beginning of Isaac's life at the end of this full portion at chapter 21. Shut that down. All right. That being said, chapter 1 will be pretty fast. I'm going to allow the audio reader to read the full chapter because it's one big story about Sarah and Hagar. And so I'm not going to break it up any, and we'll cover some precepts at the end of this chapter. Let's get it.
Genesis 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. And she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee. But Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself unto her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, Thou God seest me. For she said, Have I also here looked after him that seeth me? Wherefore the well was called Beer Lohai Roi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old, when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram.
All right. That was Sarai and Hagar's relationship post-pregnancy of Ishmael and the birth of Ishmael, right there in chapter 16. All right, so we're going to go to the Aramaic Targum for one verse, verse 5. All right, for just more context here. So it's going to be this entire paragraph here is verse 5. And Sarai said to Abram, All my afflictions is from thee. Being secure that thou wouldest do me justice, I left the land and house of my father, and came up with thee to a foreign land. And for as much as I was not able to become a mother, I set free my handmaid, and gave her to lie in thy bosom. And she seeth that she had conceived, and mine honor is despised before her. But now is my affliction manifest before the Adon, who will spread peace between me and thee. And the land shall be replenished from us. nor shall we need the help of progeny of Hagar, the daughter of Pharaoh, bar Nimrod, who threw thee into the furnace of fire. That last sentence was the main part of reading this. Sarai, right here, this last sentence is packed. She's saying that after Hagar is pregnant with Ishmael, she's saying that now she regrets it and we don't need her, which evidently they did it, but I mean, she should have thought about this beforehand, right? So she's saying we don't need her, and then it specifies that this is a seed of Nimrod. The Pharaoh of, because remember, Nimrod is a Canaanite. I mean, let's see. From Ham. Ooh. What's who is Nimrod's father? Who is Nimrod's father? Can't remember. No, he's obviously a Hamite. Anybody know? Off top of their head? Not really important. You can always look this up. But either way, this is saying that she's like, in other words, building a case against Hagar, saying that she's despising her so much. She's building a case saying that now I'm thinking about it, we don't need her, especially because she's from the seed of Nimrod and the person who threw you in the fire. Like, could you imagine this conversation? And Abraham's got to be looking at her like, Cush. Thank you, guys. Nimrod, the son of Cush, and evidently the Pharaoh came from the seed of, or whatever, how it's structured in the family. But yeah, evidently she was just building a case, and that's what she said. Just thought it was something interesting to put in there, that how much Sarah was despising Hagar. Now let's go to Jasher chapter 16, verses 23 to 33. We touched on this just a tad bit with Hagar last week, but now we're going to read it in its entirety since we're in the story. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's wife, was still barren in those days. She did not bear to Abram either son or daughter. And when she saw that she bare no children, she took her handmaid Hagar, whom Pharaoh had given her, and she gave her to Abram, her husband, for a wife. For Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai, as Sarai taught her. She was not in any way deficient in following her good ways. So that was the thing we read last week. Just giving credit when credit's due, right? Verse 26, and Sarai said to Abram, behold, here is my handmaid Hagar. Go to her that she may bring forth upon my knees, that I may also obtain children through her. And at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 85th year of Abram's life, Sarai gave Hagar unto him. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his wife Sarai, and he took his handmaid Hagar, and Abram came to her, and she conceived. And when Hagar saw that she had conceived, she rejoiced greatly, and her mistress was despised in her eyes. And she said within herself, this can only be that I am better before Elohim than Sarai, my mistress. So we do see that there is pride coming into Hagar's heart at the moment she conceived. So I will say this. Obviously, Sarah, it plainly started tripping. Like, she just was, after it happened, she felt horrible. She felt beneath Hagar and all of the above. But at the same time, Sarai most likely was feeling the pride coming from Hagar, which we can feel in modern day time, at work, anywhere in the family, that if someone feels like they're better than you, you can feel that energy, right? And so just to give Sarah a little leeway, imagine your servant walking around as if she's better than you. Just want to throw that out. For all the days that my mistress has been with my Lord, she did not conceive, but me, the Adon, has caused in so short a time to conceive by him. And when Sarai saw that Hagar had conceived by Abram, Sarai was jealous of her handmaid, and Sarai said within herself, this is surely nothing else but that she must be better than I. I mean, man, she was going through it, right? And Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee, for at the time when thou didst pray before the Adon for children, why didst thou not pray on my account? This is Sarah. I mean, I've said this before, but I'm going to say this to a portion. Man, good thing Sarah had a very strong, righteous husband, because Sarah handled this situation horribly, though. Now she's blaming Abraham for not praying enough for her. She's blaming Hagar. She's blaming everybody when it was her that said to do it. I mean, this is toxic energy. I mean, toxic mentality to live by. So in other words, I'm just want to point out that this is not good. For at the time when thou didst pray before the Adon for children, why didst thou not pray on my account, that the Adon should give me seed from thee? And when I speak to Hagar in thy presence, she despises my words, because she has conceived, and thou wilt say nothing to her. Like, what is Abram supposed to say? Man, I don't know. I know Abram was looking like Sarah. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. May the Most High judge between me and thee for what thou hast done to me. Wow. And Abram said to Sarai, behold, thy handmaid is in thy hand. Do unto her as it seem good in thy eyes. And Sarai afflicted her, and Hagar fled from her to the wilderness. And then we read what happened in Genesis chapter 16. The angel of the Most High came to her and told her to go back and to submit to Sarah. All right, and that will close chapter 16. Let's go and move forward to 17 of Genesis.
Genesis 17. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me, and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face. And God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God.
All right, we're going to stop right there, verse 8. Just want to point out a couple of notes here. So we have the Most High reaching out to Abraham, reestablishing that he's making a covenant with him, and he will be, where is it at? a father of many nations. All right, we're going to start off in the Targum. All right, 17 verse 2. Just very, very small points, but I want to point them out because I love the Aramaic Targums, not only having my word, but capitalizing word, establishing that this is a being, a person. This is verse 2, chapter 17, just reads a little bit different. And I will set my covenant between my word. So it's always going back to the relationship between us and Messiah, everything. That's where from the beginning of the Bible, the scriptures, all the way to the book of Revelation is all about a covenant, a wedding vow between the bridegroom and the groom. So, I mean, the bride and the bridegroom, excuse me, the groom and the bride. And we obviously know that my word, Messiah, is the groom. The covenant is seen as a wedding vow. Don't y'all, there's a reason for the lives that we live in, the covenants that we've been given between us, a man and a woman. It's supposed to be a mirror image of the mystery of Mashiach with us. He created for us to be one, to become one flesh, and that's through the covenant of marriage. That was supposed to be symbolic of the spiritual marriage unity that we are to become as one in the body of Mashiach. It's the same thing. One is just in the flesh that represents the spiritual. All right. So I just wanted to, and also even further down, this is my covenant that you shall observe between my word and you. So Abba, our father, has ordained the wedding, but we're not marrying the father. We're marrying his son. That is how we become united with the heavens, is through the Messiah. So the father has ordained the marriage between the groom, my word, and the bride, us. So people that don't believe in Messiah, supposedly the Old Testament is saying we're going to get married to the Father. That's against Torah. Doesn't even make any sense. Who are we getting married to then, right? All right, and now we're going to go to Deuteronomy because we're going to look at when it talks about in verse 1. He appeared before Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty. Walk before me and be thou perfect. Did y'all know we're supposed to be perfect? And eventually, to go up to the high heavens with Abba, it's required to be perfect. Do y'all know that that's the whole reason why the fallen angels can't go back to the high heavens, because they're not perfect anymore. And they haven't been given the opportunity to confess sins and to repent because they knew better. But we are committed to be perfect, and this is steadfast throughout all Scripture. Deuteronomy 18:13. Thou shalt be perfect with the Adon thy Alahai. And then all the way in the New Testament, Messiah himself says this, Matthew 5:48. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Don't ever let someone sell you short to think that you can't keep the commandments of the Most High, that you shouldn't be striving for perfection. Now, is this talking about perfect in a sense of you making all your baskets in basketball? you shooting 100 shots and making 100 shots. No. This is talking about being perfect within Torah. You don't have to eat pork. You can stop yourself from eating unclean foods. And every once in a while, you may slip up and eat something that is in the ingredients that you didn't know, but that's the glory of it. That's what grace is about. You find out that, an ingredient that I had in my cabinet had pork in it. I repent, I ask for forgiveness, and then I remove it, and then you do it no more. You don't buy that ingredient again, and then you even check even more so when you're buying things. And that's what this life is about. But we should be striving to be perfect in everything that we do. No mistake or second guessing about that. It's all about where your heart is at. If you are striving to be perfect, then you are striving to walk like Mashiach, because we know he was our unblemished lamb, right? All right. All right, now we're going to read the rest of the chapter now, 9 through 27.
Genesis 17. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, a covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face. And God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep, between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man-child in your generations, he that is born in the house, or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her. And she shall be a mother of nations, kings of people shall be of her. Then Abram fell upon his face, and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear? And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the selfsame day, as God had said unto him. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house, born in the house, and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him.
All right, there's actually quite a bit to cover. I feel like can be overlooked and can be a hard point to talk about the circumcision for, I guess, I don't know, people in the faith nowadays, because a lot of us in the faith may not be circumcised, right? And so everyone wants to run to Acts 15 and say, oh, well, circumcision is no more. James and the Jerusalem Council, made a statement on it. But I'm here to tell you, just straightforward, y'all. There's nowhere in Scripture that denounces circumcision of the flesh. Right here in verse 13, it's as clear as it could get. He that is born in thy house, he that is brought with thy money. So we saw at the very end of the chapter that this is anyone, even the stranger that is a part of the covenant, right? Was circumcised. Must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh. In my covenant. Come on. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. The biggest difference between the Old Testament and the New is simply animal sacrifices, and we know that we have an eternal sacrificial lamb for our sins in Mashiach. Outside of that, y'all, in the fact of we are in a different priesthood. But this got nothing to do with that. Those are the main shifts from the so-called Old Testament to the New. The covenant of circumcision, I don't see how that has gone away. And then we have, let me see real quick. Excuse me. Oh, let me go and read, because some people for Deuteronomy 10:16, some people would say, oh, well, we're supposed to be circumcised of our heart. Well, this is in Torah. This wasn't nothing new. Deuteronomy 10:16, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart and be no more stiff-necked. This is not just written in the prophets. This isn't a new commandment. So in other words, when people justify that, we only should be circumcised of the heart now. No, that's not nothing new. We were to be circumcised of the foreskin of our heart, meaning spiritually, even in the Torah, the same Torah that tells you to circumcise the foreskin of your flesh. And specifically Acts 15, we see, I want to read Acts, you know what, I'll go to it. I'll go to it here so we can all see it together. We're going to start off Acts 15. So we're at the Jerusalem Council with the apostles and the elders of the church. But there arose up a certain of the sect of the Pharisees, which believed, saying that it was needful to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. And the apostles and elders came together to consider of this matter. And there had been much disputing. Peter rose up and said unto them, Men and brethren, ye know how that a good while ago Elohim made choice among us that the Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe. And God which knows the heart, bears them witness, giving them the Ruach Kodesh, even as he did unto us. And then just going to go to the judgment now. And after they had held their peace, James answered, saying, Men and brethren, hearken unto me. Simeon has declared how Elohim at the first did visit the Gentiles to take out of them a people for his name. And to this agree the words of the prophets as it is written. And after this, I will return and build let me cut to the point here. Wherefore, my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to Elohim, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. For Moses of old time has in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath. All right, and so that's the main point. Quick, I'm just this is a whole nother study, but I feel the need to touch on it. This is the point of the Torah portion, so we're going to touch on it. And so the judgment is saying the sect of the Pharisees that are telling the Gentiles to be circumcised are still doing what? They're still have idols. They're still practicing fornication. They're still and from things strangled, animals strangled, like in other words, unclean things, and from blood, which is very, very big sin. What is going on here is Peter and James is establishing that these Gentiles just came into the faith. They don't even understand who the Most High is and what he expects from them. And you're asking them to get circumcised while they're still worshiping idols, while they're still practicing fornication and drinking blood? No, it's upside down. They need to slowly build a relationship with the Most High by not doing these things. And then afterwards, Moses of old time in every city will be preached, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day, which they will learn and grow in the faith. And then eventually will do things such as circumcision and all the other stuff. Because this, I hear people saying, oh, well, this is all we have to worry about, guys. This is not even included in the 10 Commandments. This is clearly not saying all Gentiles have to do. This is saying, why are we pushing circumcision while they're still battling these major transgressions of the Torah? For them to get started to go even in the synagogues, to get started on the righteous path, they have to start here before even thinking about trying to be circumcised. We don't even want, a lot of the Jews wouldn't even want to be associated with the Gentiles. And I see why. If they're doing all of this stuff, I wouldn't want to be associated with anyone today that was drinking blood and worshiping idols, right? So there's an order of things is what the Jerusalem Council came up with. They said they need to stop doing these sins. And then they go into the synagogues every Sabbath day and learn how to be an Israelite, a disciple of the Most High. So all that being said, there's no new commandment of circumcising the foreskin of your heart. The circumcision of the flesh is a representation of that. But the flesh actually matters, and we're about to get into that part now too. All right, now we're going to get into the importance of why the flesh, it says it's everlasting and there is no commandment. Like I said, we have commandments. In Hebrews, it talks about a switch of the priesthood from the Levitical priesthood to the order of Melchizedek, which is through Mashiach now. And then we have the many prophecies of the Passover lamb. So we have prophecies that tell us that we are not going to do sacrifices because of Mashiach and that we're in a new priesthood. So we have an order of why we don't do those things. There is no commandment not to have the foreskin of your flesh circumcised. I'm sorry, there isn't. And so when we get into that, we see the actual commandment in Leviticus 12:3, in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And then we go, and then even on top of that, we see that there's a significance of the 8th day tied in with a feast day. The 8th day of the tabernacles is a appointed time, and it's totally connected with circumcision. There's no coincidence that you are to be circumcised on the 8th day, and we have an appointed time called the 8th day as well, which is a Sabbath. So we're going to tie this all together now. Let's go to Luke 2:21. And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcision of a child, his name was called Yasha, which was so named of the angel before he was conceived in the womb. So I'm just pointing out here that Mashiach followed the commandments perfectly. He was circumcised on the 8th day as well. And then we're going to go to Jubilees. And then, like I said, I'm going to tie it all together after reading all the scripts. Jubilees chapter 16, verse 14. And this is just pointing out that Abraham did it to Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son on the 8th day, and he was the first, pointing out that Abraham got the instructions and he did it right away with Isaac, and he was the first that was circumcised according to the covenant, which is ordained forever. All right. So now, I have one more verse. Let me see. Should I read this before 17? Yeah, let's go ahead and read this last one. And then I'm going to just give a quick summary of the circumcision of the 8th day and why it's important, in that the circumcising your flesh is the whole point of it. Now I'm reading from Jasher, chapter 17, verse 17 through 20. At that time, the Adon appeared to him and said to him, I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will greatly multiply thy seed. And this is the covenant which I make between me and thee, that every male child be circumcised, thou and thy seed after thee. At 8 days old shall it be circumcised, and this covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And now, therefore, thy name shall no more be called Abram, but Abraham. And thy wife shall no more be called Sarai, but Sarah. All right. Oh, and I'll just read the last one. For I will bless you both, and I will multiply your seed after you, that you shall become a great nation, and kings shall come forth from you. All right. Real quick. Understanding, I actually have a 8th day study on this on not on YouTube yet. This was before I started doing it on YouTube. This on Instagram. But I'm going to summarize it. When you look at, we know the feast days, all are appointed times for prophecies to be fulfilled, especially the fall feast in the latter days. We have Sukkot. Sukkot is the marriage. I talked about the marriage covenant between us and Mashiach. The marriage of the Lamb, mentioned in the book of Revelation, is at tabernacles. He becomes our cover. Get it? Tabernacles is a covering in the wilderness. When we are married to Mashiach, he becomes our cover. The 8th day is when we take off flesh and become eternal. Wait a minute. Circumcision is taking off the foreskin of your flesh, which is actually the head of a man's reproduction part, right? What did we just read after he tells them to get circumcised? It's connected. He says, I will make you a father of many nations, and I will greatly multiply thy seed. Go get circumcised. You see the connections here, right? You circumcise your head, and you are acknowledging that on the 8th day, you have taken the circumcision of the foreskin because it represents taking off the flesh to be properly covered in the eternity of the spirit. So to think that circumcising the foreskin of your flesh is gone away with is saying the 8th day has gone away with. The circumcision is on the 8th day because it represents taking off the flesh and putting on the eternal spirit. And just like Abraham, you could be 99 years old, you could be 30, you could be 50. When he got convicted and the Most High told him to do so, he went out and did it. Well, he did it that same day. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying for you to go get a knife and do what you do. All I'm saying is that it's not done away with. I don't care what anybody say. It's not done away with. The message is eternal. Until we get out of this fleshly body, the message is taking off the foreskin of flesh to enter into the 8th day, which is eternity, where flesh doesn't exist and sin has no dominion. All right? That's why it's such a big deal. Why circumcision is such a big deal. Why even in the book of Acts 15, circumcision is still a big deal in the New Testament. But James and Peter was like, you're going to scare them off. Think about it. Let's think about modern day. You get someone to come to your church. In the first day, some Pharisee type character go, is he circumcised? Think about it. Like, think about how crazy that sounds. And the new person's like, no. Well, look, you better get out of here until you're circumcised. Think about how that sounds. They don't even know what's going on. Maybe they met Messiah. Maybe they had an interaction with the Spirit. And all they know is that they're trying to figure out the way of life. They're trying to follow the Most High. And then you had Pharisees telling them the first year of following to go get circumcised. And James and Peter is like, they're still worshiping idols. They're still practicing drinking blood. How about we work on their character issues that is going to stop them from ever building a relationship and let them prove that they're in it, and they're going to prove their worth by showing up to Shabbats and listening, and then they will eventually get convicted and go get circumcised. There's an order to everything, family. Let's not throw out everything. Find the structure, and if this is speaking to you and you're not circumcised, pray about it. Do you still do your own due diligence? I'm just letting you know, it's as real as it can get. It says forever. There's nothing that says it's not forever. And there is a meaning behind you circumcising your male child on the 8th day. That's all I'm going to say. And last thing, I'm going to just throw out this little nugget. I thought about this, and this is very interesting. When Adam and Eve fell into sin, right? Eve, I'm not going to go into the whole story of Adam and Eve, but Eve transgressed. And then she would bear blood upon her virgin, being a virgin, right? She would produce blood to prove that she is a virgin. And that's how, until this day, you can know if someone's a virgin, right? Well, the first covenant that he made for a nation of people through Abraham, he gave the covenant through circumcision. So let's put 2 and 2 together. In both of them, he tells them to go multiply and be fruitful afterwards. You will produce blood upon your virginity. Be fruitful. I make a covenant with Abraham, circumcise the foreskin of your flesh, go be fruitful. These are both pointing out reproductive points of a male and a female. So that being said, how would you know a woman is actually righteous in fulfilling her young duties of not fornicating? She will have blood on her virginity. How would you know a male is righteous? By keeping the covenant, he will be circumcised. So my point is, the Most High has even structured for you to know the person that you have had intercourse with. You would know through a woman and through a man if they are actually a part of the covenant in walking as they are talking. Obviously nowadays, you can meet someone older and whatnot, but I'm saying back in that day, or even nowadays, if you're young and you find two young people that say they have done it the right way, that's kind of how they match. All right, that is all of chapter 17. Let's get into chapter 18 now. Yeah, it's all messed up now. I'm just saying back in those days, when you read scripture, this is how, and when we get into the book of Leviticus, they have a whole structure to deal with women that don't produce blood to prove their virginity. But also, not to create an image, but before the intercourse, how would a woman be able to know if this is a man of the Most High? Only at those times, at least that I know of, only Israelites was getting circumcised. So you would know if you had a man of the Most High, because his flesh down there will be circumcised. Throwing that out there. All right, let's get into chapter 18. Screen's loading. 1 second. All right. Well, nowadays, if you go to the hospital and they're doing circumcision, they won't do it on the 8th day. They'll give you a shot to boost your vitamin K levels or whatnot, so you won't bleed out. In other words, it's not done in a proper way, at least at the birth nowadays. All right, chapter 18, we're going to read verse 1 through 8.
Genesis 18. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes, and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do, as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it unto a young man, and he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat.
Oh man, so this is packed. This is a study I covered. Meat and milk. I have a food law study breakdown on my YouTube, but the milk and meat live study is on my Instagram. Y'all can always message me if you can't find this information. But a lot of things to point out in the first 8 verses. We see that we have, at least in the Masoretic, it says 3 men stood by him. Well, let's clear this up real quick. Let's go to Jasher 18:4. And the Most High appeared to him in the plain of Maree and sent 3 of his ministering angels to visit him. So these were not men. They looked like men, but they were angels. Very important detail here, because these are not ordinary men. Even they're not even men of the Most High. They're angels. There's levels to this, right? So let's make sure we clarify that. But we also see when they approach Abram, and Abram asked to allow them to make them a feast. Abram hastened into the tent unto Sarah and said, "Make quickly." And then just to summarize, bread, meat, and then it talks about butter, milk, and meat all together. And he set it before them, the 3 angels, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. They ate this meal. Abraham did it. Abraham didn't even sit with them. He stood up away by the tree and allowed them to eat alone this meal. And I'm saying that in this Torah portion, we're going to see that there are meals straight for angels and not for man. This meal was not for man. This is, and just to summarize the study on milk and meat, this is, at least of my findings, the only meal in all scripture, including Apocrypha, that has meat and milk together, and therefore angels. Like I said, Abraham didn't even sit at this table that was given meat and milk. And I say all of this because when we go into well, let me read Genesis 18:2 really quick, and then we're gonna to see. Let me see. I got it before, so let me see. Genesis 18. Oh. 18. All right, one second. This online targums kill me with no verses. All right. It's weird. Is that the end here? Okay, whichever. I'm just going to read it. I can't find the exact line because this goofy setup won't give me verses. So I'm just going to read it. Like I said, you can always look this up on my website. Let me actually show you this since I said I can't find the exact thing. All right, you can go to my website. I just wanted to point this out, take the opportunity. If you go to my website, everything for the feast day calendar and instructions is at appointed times in the Learning Academy here. If you go to, we have downloadables, and I would, from the beginning, for Torah readings, check that out. That actually has some somebody organized the Jasher and Jasher, Jubilees, Enoch, and the Antiquities of the Jews by historian Josephus, all like together and organized. So you can check that out. But even if you go to study tools links, this is all the links that I'm pulling from in this study. This is actually the link to the book, but you click this fourth link right here. This will take you to this page right here. And you just click on chapter and verses where I'm at. So just wanted to show that. BecomeSetApart.com. All right. All right. Let's exit out of that. All right. So somewhere here in verse 2 of chapter 18, I'm just going to read it. Can't find it right here, and I'm not going to take all day. So let's just read it. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 angels in the resemblance of men. So, man, I like that much better. That kind of puts Jasher and the Masoretic together. The Masoretic says men. Jasher says angels. This says 3 angels in the resemblance of men were standing before him, who had been sent from the necessity of 3 things. Very, very, oh, here we go. Here we go. I see it now. Right here. This is where we're at. Of 3 things. So 3 angels in resemblance of men were standing before him. Angels who has sent from the necessity of 3 things, because it is not possible for a ministering angel to be sent for more than one purpose at a time. This is interesting. 1 then had come to make known to him that Sarah should bear a man child. 1 had come to deliver Lot, and 1 to overthrow Sodom and Gomorrah. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the door of the tent and bowed himself on the earth. And we're actually going to follow this trend all the way through this Torah portion, that each one did have a job. And there, you know, we're going to follow up and see if there's truth behind this statement in the Targums chapter 18, verse 2. Okay. Now we're going to go back to the main topic at hand about how Abram made angels, and the only meal in the entire scriptures of milk and meat was to angels. No man is, at least no righteous man, and well, no other meal, but I'm just saying specifically a righteous man, never ate meat and milk. And then we see verses such as, show in the Masoretic real quick, and then we'll go into the Targums. Exodus 23 and 19. We see, thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. And that is grouped with the verse talking about the first of the first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring unto thee. And then it says, shall not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. When we go into 2 different Targums, I was trying to confirm this when I was doing this study, and I found it in both manuscripts of the Onkelos and the Pseudo Jonathan. All of them, all the verses that has it, Exodus 23:19, thou shalt not eat flesh with milk. Exodus 34:26, thou shalt not eat flesh with milk. Deuteronomy 14:21, thou shalt not eat flesh with milk. And then I was, looking at both, same thing. It shall not be lawful for you to boil, much less eat flesh with milk when both are mixed together. You are not allowed to boil or eat flesh and milk mixed together. And you are not permitted to dress or eat of flesh and milk mingled together, lest I be greatly displeased. And when we look at the Masoretic, I mean, when you go, thou shalt not seethe, that's like boil or cook, a kid in his mother's milk. This is specifically saying do not boil or cook a kid, a calf, in other words, a baby of a mother in his mother's milk. And when you do research on this, there's no even pagan society that used to do this. No one does this nowadays. Don't nobody go out their way to make sure the milk is coming from the mother of the calf or the kid or the goat kid that you're eating. Like, nobody does that. And so what's the real meaning of this? And I think it's all tied in with this meal referenced in Genesis chapter 18, that this meal is not for us. This is a meal of that represents life and death in my understanding. When do you eat milk? When do you drink milk as your sole nutritious provider for your body? As a child, when you don't eat meat yet, right? There's not one child that is breastfeeding chewing on some meat. It doesn't work that way. When you are weaned and you start eating whole foods and possibly meat, you don't breastfeed anymore. That should be behind you. You should have been weaned. And that's the whole thing with the spiritual walk as well. If I am still on milk, then I can't understand and actually chew on meat. And once I am on meat spiritually, if I fall back onto breastfeeding with milk, I am in transgression. It's the same thing when I was talking about the circumcision of the foreskin. What we're doing in the flesh represents our walk in the spirit. And if you want to know more on that, I'm going to stop because that's a whole other study. But like I said, I think it's important to talk about the main points that's in the Torah portions. If you want more on that, I talk about it at the end of the food law in my YouTube study. And then I have a whole video live on it on my Instagram. But we're going to move on from this topic. All right. I got one more verse. I wanted to point out how the three angels that resembled men, this is nothing new. Even in the canon itself, it talks about, you never know who you could be talking to. It could be an angel, right? And then even in Joshua 5, we see an angel resembling as a man as well. 5:13-15. It came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword. See, a man with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, art thou for us or for our adversaries? And he said, nay, but as a captain of the host of Haya am I now come. So this is an angel, resemblance of a man. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship and said unto him, what says thou? What says my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of Haya's host said unto Joshua, loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for this place whereon thou standeth is holy. All right, that last verse was kind of extra, but this is just pointing out that angels can be amongst us in resembling as a man today. There's nothing new under the sun. Remember that. All right, let's continue now. 9-15. Come on. I hate when it resets. It's not even telling me what verse it's on. Let me see.
I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, and they did eat.
There we go.
And they said unto him, where is Sarah, thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, and well stricken in age, and had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child, which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laugh not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh.
And real quick, I'm only stopping for one point here. Is is the fact of like just the simple fact that she laughed and said she didn't laugh, is that we got to keep it 100 with the Most High, right? He knows everything that we're doing. And these are, these are not even the Most High. These are angels of the Most High, and they still are all on her case. But I just wanted to point out that if we remember in Genesis 17:17, in just the chapter before, I just want to point out that Abraham laughed too. Abraham laughed. And Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? So it's, I don't think it's more so about the laugh. Like I think we all kind of can laugh at certain moments, the Most High working in us, that we almost like, it's hard for us to believe, right? But I would say it's the way Sarah handles it. She denies it, is why it's such like pointed out more than Abraham's laugh. Is because she denies it in front of him, knowing what she has done. And just a little 2 cents of just saying, don't ever act like you can get over on the Most High or even one of his messengers, right? Let's be one authentic and 100 at all times. All right, let's continue.
And the men rose up from thence, and looked toward Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And the Lord said, Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now, and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me. And if not, I will know.
All right. I'm going to stop because I'm going to reread all what we just read, verse 16 through 21. I want to read all of it in the Targum because it gives some gems and gives better insight, which is what we're doing, right? So I'm going to read, let me see, 16 through 21. Let's go to that. All right, here we go. 21. Punish. All right, right here, 16 through 21 in Targums, what we just read. And the angels who had the likeness of men turned thence and went towards Sodom. And Abraham now supplicated mercy for Lot and ministered in prayer before the Most High. And Abraham prayed and said, Wilt thou destroy in thy displeasure the innocent with the guilty? Perhaps there are 50 innocent persons within the city. No. This is later. Wrong part. 1 second. Okay, this is it. It has the same beginning. And the angels who had a likeness of men, and the angels who had a likeness of men. That's what happens when you don't have the verses, right? At least written on here. And the angels who had a likeness of men arose from thence. And the one who had made known the tidings to Sarah ascended to the high heavens. And two of them looked towards Sodom. And this is interesting because we're going to read it. I have it written in here, but later on, especially through chapter 19, we see that there is only two. Well, we read in Sodom that there is only two angels. So in other words, it looks like real credible the idea that the Targums give us in verse 2 of 18, that there was three messengers, but only two went to Sodom because the first messenger did its duty already. So that's what that's why I said we're gonna follow it, because it's interesting here. So just read, and the one who had made known the tidings to Sarah ascended to the high heavens, and two of them looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them. And the Adon said, with his word, I cannot hide from Abraham. Oh yeah, listen to this part right here. It reads different from the Masoretic. I cannot hide from Abraham that which I am about to do. And it is right that before I do it, I should make it known to him. Wow. This is how much he thought of Abraham. He says, it's not right for me not to tell Abraham what I'm about to do. He felt like Abraham, a mere man, a true friend of the Most High, deserved to know what he's about to do to Sodom, where Lot is located. And then obviously we're going to see that Abraham submits for Lot and Sodom, but that shows you how much just how much respect you can be there's to earn with our Father, that if you deserve it, man, he will give you this wisdom, right? For Abraham is to be a great and mighty people, and through him shall all the peoples of the earth be blessed. Because his holiness is manifest before me, that he will instruct his sons and the men of his house after him to keep the ways that are right before the Adon, to do justice and judgment, that the Most High may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken concerning him. And read a little bit more. And the Most High said to the ministering angels, the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah, because they oppress the poor, and decree that whosoever giveth a morsel to the needy shall be burned with fire, is therefore great, and their guilt exceedingly weighty. I will now appear and see whether, as the cry of a damsel torn away, which seateth before me, they have made completion of their sins, or whether they have made an end of their sins. And if they have wrought repentance, shall they not be as if innocent before me? And as if not knowing, I will not punish. So he's making it clear that they are not repenting and they are knowingly being sinful. And the angel, let's see. Okay. All right. That's where we're going to stop there. Okay. So just giving more clarity to what we're reading here. That's what we're looking for. No, the first angel's job was to deliver the message that she will give birth to a son named, and then they will name him Isaac. That's it. I mean, that's on Sarah to believe. That's kind of what the laugh was about, was he was like checking her like, I know you laughed, but don't deny that you laughed in unbelief. And that's when she was like, no, and checked herself in a sense, like, oh no, I believe I didn't laugh. And he was like, you did laugh, but okay. All right, let's finish this chapter.
And the men turned their faces from thence, and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy, and not spare the place, for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked, that be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, Behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for lack of 5? And he said, If I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again, and said, Peradventure, there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. And he said unto him, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure, there shall 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it, if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure, there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. And he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And the Lord went his way, as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place.
I would say the most overlooked matter of the end of chapter 18 with Abraham pleading for Sodom is the fact that it connects perfectly with the flood. How the Most High was saying that he is not going to punish, he's not going to punish the righteous with the unrighteous. And if, we remember what happened in the flood, that Methuselah was the last righteous man that wasn't going to be on the ark to die, and there was no more righteous. In other words, what Abraham is pleading is consistent. He's saying you're a just Allahai. You're not going to punish the righteous with the wicked. He didn't do it in the flood. He didn't do it in the Exodus, which we'll get to, and he's not going to do it in the last days either. His people are always separated and always pulled out of bondage of whatever situation they're in. Just like Noah was pulled out of the wickedness of the pre-flood, Israelites was pulled out of the wickedness and the bondage of Egypt. And so as we are in Babylon today, upon the second Exodus, his people will be protected and pulled out of this captivity. Most High is consistent, and Abraham knows that, and that's why he was pleading. But there was only Lot, and good gracious Lot and his family just ruins it. Sorry to say that, but let's get on chapter 19 now. All right.
Genesis 19. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat.
All right, I just want to touch on this. They baked unleavened bread. It almost looks like Passover. They get there at evening, right? And then he makes them a meal with unleavened bread. And they feasted and ate. But, I mean, if Jubilees is correct, let's go to Jubilees 16. Verses 1 and 5. And on the new moon of the 4th month, we appeared unto Abraham. And we announced to him that a son would be given unto him by Sarah, his wife. So that's what we just read in chapter 18. And then right after that, they went to Sodom to destroy it. And then we go to verse 5. And in this month, which month? The 4th month. And in this month, the Most High executed his judgments on Sodom and Gomorrah and Zeboam. I don't need to read the rest of that. Why not? In all the region of Jordan, he burned them with fire and brimstone and destroyed them until this day, even as I have declared unto thee all their works, that they are wicked and sinners exceedingly, and that they defile themselves and commit fornication in their flesh and work uncleanliness on the earth. So this happened in the 4th month. But we see that they had unleavened bread. We know that there's a purpose for everything they put in scripture, right? There's purpose of why they're saying this. So what's the purpose if Jubilees is correct that this is the 4th month and it's not Passover? Why then? I'm telling you, in my humble opinion and understanding in context, it's the same thing what Abraham did for the angels. Lot knew these were angels, no doubt about it. I don't know if angels can have leaven. I don't know. It doesn't specify that in Abraham's story, but that's the only thing I can think of. I just think it's interesting how they made sure to mention that they gave them unleavened bread to the angels when it's in the 4th month, because I almost thought it was Passover at evening with unleavened bread, but not according to Jubilees. So just throwing it out there, but let's keep it rolling. And I'm going to let it read the whole rest of the chapter from 4 to 38 because it's one big story. Right. Unleavened bread represents perfect without any so-called yeast, which is usually represented as sin. And so that's what I was saying. You got the butter. You have the milk and the meat. I don't think I even went through and finished that. Milk represents life, the beginning of life, birth, which is nurtured by milk. Meat represents death, because how are you eating meat? The animal's dead. So meat and milk represents life and death. And so who is beyond that? Who's beyond life and death? How about an eternal being that never dies? An angel. And then if there is criteria for what angels eat, maybe there's something to do with leaven in the sense of, like I said, in the spiritual realm, that they separate themselves from leaven as well. That's why I'm just throwing it out there. No guarantees of that. This is just the only thing that makes sense in the context of what I'm reading now. the fact of unleavened bread can be made quickly. If that's the case, I don't think he would have mentioned it. I don't think it's mentioned. It mentioned the meal. I don't think it mentions the meal because it's a fast food option. That doesn't really give value. I'm thinking scripture goes beyond and above the giving you a explanation on a meal because it was a fast meal to cook. I'm thinking it's a deeper meaning than that. That's just my humble opinion. Yes. You say the new moon of the 4th month is a festival. Let's go. Well, I guess it doesn't say that same day. It says in this month. So it could have been a new moon festival. It doesn't say the exact day, but it did say the new moon of the 4th month is when they deliver the message. If that was the same day, it could have been a feast, but still, there's only one feast that we specifically have unleavened bread for. And so, in other words, throw it around. Just pointing out details there that stood out for me. All right, so now we're going to read the rest of the chapter because it's one full story about Lot's family departing in the fall of Sodom and Gomorrah. Genesis 19:4 through 38.
Genesis 19.
Come on.
And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them. And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet. And ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly. And they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot, and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold now, I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. And they said, Stand back. And they said again, This one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut to the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out, and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the man laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, Oh, not so, my lord. Behold now, thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast shown unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die. Behold now, this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city, for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar, and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in, and lay with her father. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow, that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in, and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose, and lay with him. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day.
Woo! Okay. All right. Jam-packed. First and foremost, I see, some people commenting on Lot offering up his daughters. And there's really nothing good for me to say about that. There's no wisdom behind that for me. I feel like Lot was doing whatever he thought was right in the moment. And he was desperate, and I don't think that was a good decision. And I think someone said in the chat that he was trying to protect the angels, and then someone was all like, he should know that angels don't need protection, and I agree. I think he was flustered and knew that he was going to get in trouble if, I guess they put their hands on the angel. There's really nothing good for me to say about that. I don't agree with what he did, and there's nothing in scripture that actually, tells you that he did the right thing or the bad thing. So it just states that for whichever purpose. So let's just move on past that. Like I said, it's not saying he did the right thing. I would lean towards he did the wrong thing, but the angels made up for it and said, we trying to save you and your daughters, bro. Like, chillax, All right, so that being said, let's start off reading some verses from the Targums. All right, let's go. I'm going to read verse 5, then 17, then 26. And so I am not trying to, since I'm jumping around, here is 19. I'm not going to try to find it in all three spots. So I'm just going to put 19 here, and I'm just going to read verse 5 and 17 to 26. All right, so Genesis 19, verse 5. All right. Yeah, see, I'm not even going to try to find it. It's going to be too jumping around, all right? Verse 5, and they cried to Lot and said to him, where are the men who entered with thee tonight? Bring them out to us, and we will lie with them. I just wanted to point that out because we have in verse 5, it says that we may know them. We're just getting more clarity. That's what this is about. So in the Targum, it says, so we will lie with them. So it's just making it very clear that they wanted to have sex with them, okay? That's type of one of the many heathen practices of Sodom. We spoke about the transgressions of Sodom last week, and here was another act of transgression, them taking a stranger and pretty much raping them is what they wanted to do in this story. All right, now I'm going to read verse 17. Like I said, I'm jumping around, so I'm not trying to find it. And it was that as they led them without, one of them returned into Sodom to destroy it. So this is verse 17 I'm reading right here is back on what we were keeping track with the three angels all having one duty. One is already gone, and it's consistent that there is only two angels amongst them right now in with Lot. See, I mean, well, shoot, right here at the top. See, so that even the Masoretic is being consistent. 3 angels was in 18, and now only 2 angels came to Sodom. So still holding consistent with that. All right. And so now verse 17 says, like I said, I wish it was versed out, but I don't want to spend too much time looking for it in these paragraphs. But it says, and it was that as they led them without, one of them returned into Sodom to destroy it. So one was to destroy, and the other that came was to lead out Lot's family. Continuing, and one remained with Lot and said to him, be merciful to your life. Look not behind you, and stand not in all the plain to the mountains. Escape, or you will perish. Well, we see the warning that you don't look back. So we see what happened with Lot's wife, right? All right. Let's see. Where is that at? Lot's wife. Oh, what verse is that? Am I tripping? Is the Lot's wife in this chapter? I can't find it. What verse is the? Lot's wife turning around. I don't know why I can't find it right now. Well, let me, where is it at? 26. Keep overlooking it. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, because I'm going to need that later. All right. All right, now, yes, there we go. Reading verse 26 in the Targums. So this just says, but his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. In the Targums, it gives a very big explanation of what she turned back for. We see that he already gave a warning for that, but it was actually right here, so y'all can read along. There we go. And his wife, this is verse 26 in the Targum, and his wife looked after the angel. So she looked back at the angel to know what would be the end of her father's house. This is what she looked back and was speaking to the angel, for she was of the daughters of the, I'm pretty sure that is the Sodomites. And because she sinned by salt, she was manifestly punished. Behold, she was made a statue of salt. Oh my goodness. Okay. This is huge. This gives so much reason. I looked into this week. All right. So why did she turn into salt? Did anybody ever think why she turned into salt? To be honest, I never gave it much thought until this week's Torah portion. Why would she turn it into salt? That's not a common thing in the Bible that everyone turns into salt, right? This is the only person that I know of that turns into salt. And it says, for what reason? Because it says that she turned to the angel to know what would be the end of her father's house, for she was a daughter of the Sodomites. And because she sinned by salt, she was manifestly punished and turned into a statue of salt. So this is what I found, and I agree with it. The fact that the narrative of Genesis 19:26 describes Lot's wife being turned into a pillar of salt and not some other substance is consistent with the use of salt in the violation of a covenant. Its association curse in the, this is ANE, is ancient Near Eastern cultures is what they're, so in other words, the culture around the land of Canaan at this time is what A&E is representing. And with the practice of throwing salt, remember, even at weddings or something, you throw salt over your left shoulder on the property that symbolizes infertility or barrenness. Lot's wife, in being turned into a pillar of salt, was seen through the culture of that time, eyes as now being infertile or barren and under a covenant curse. The importance of fertility in the context is further reinforced in the narrative by the necessity of the incestual union between Lot and his daughters. Wow. So let's go keep it on this. Salt was the ancient equivalent of refrigeration. If you wanted to stop meat or fish from decaying, you could rub in salt and make it edible for longer. This was the main reason salt was so valuable. And then it talks about some examples. And then so I'm going to go a little bit into the sacrifices as well. So we see salt was valuable as it preserved the flesh of meat. Okay, you get it? Salt is a symbol of preserving flesh, or it could be a symbol of, when you have a surplus of salt, it could be a symbol of a curse because it will stop fertility. So salt can be a symbol of preserving flesh, or a symbol of being barren when you are not able to have children of a surplus of salt. So there's in other words, salt can be intertwined with preserving and dictating fertility. And then we also see that salt is a requirement for the meat of sacrifices to Haya. You shall season all your grain offerings with salt. You shall not let the salt of the covenant with your Elohim be missing from your grain offering. With all your offering, you shall offer salt. Leviticus 2:13. In closing this thought, to try to just wrap it around your head, he turned her into salt because salt was used to preserve flesh. And that's what it said in the Targums, that salt, she turned into salt, just reading again, and because she sinned by salt, she was manifestly punished. Behold, she was made into a statute of salt. Salt preserves the flesh, and instead of listening to the instructions, she looked back to preserve the Sodomites when the judgment was already on the seed of her fathers, and she turned into a pillar of salt because she was trying to preserve the seed of her fathers, which were already judged, and she did not listen to the instructions, and in doing so, she put her father in front of the kingdom of the Most High, and she was punished, which we know is a very big deal. Do not put your children, your father, your mother, anyone in front of his kingdom, and that is what happened to her. That's the whole idea of, well, that passage in Matthew 5:13 is a kind of a whole nother, it's not really, I wouldn't say it's not really on topic. Just like yeast was in that one verse in Matthew, was used as saying the kingdom of the Most High is like yeast with within dough. That's kind of separate. That's not really intertwined with us being salt of the earth. He's not saying she is the best because I made her into a pillar of salt, because that's what that mindset, that's kind of what that is implying, that, oh, well, if she's a pillar of salt, then she must be great if we're salt of the earth, right? That's not the idea of her. In that passage is totally different why she was turned into a pillar of salt. It's because she was trying to preserve the flesh of her father, which I don't know what she was trying to do, but she did listen to the instructions. So that being said, let's get back into scripture and go to Jubilees, chapter 16. And we're going to see, we see the two sons. Now, after going in on about Lot's wife, we're going, we spoke how them being obsessed with like the fertility. I mean, really, I don't know why in this particular story with Lot's family, they were like this, but Lot's wife was so obsessed and worried about the seed of her father that she turned back. It was turned into a pillar of salt. And then Lot's children was obsessed with fertility, that they didn't even fact check that. They made it seem like there was no other men on earth. They didn't hesitate to just have sex with their father. Like, it was just like, goodness gracious, y'all, slow down. Let's actually think about something and fact check and make sure there's actually people on earth before just doing this act. But that was the whole deal. And we see that their sons was named Moab. And well, that's where you get the Moabites and the Amorites, right? So let's read about them in Jubilees 16, verse 8 and 9. And he and his daughters committed sin upon the earth, such as had not been on the earth since the days of Adam till his time. For the man lay with his daughters. And behold, it was commanded and engraven concerning all his seed on the heavenly tablets, to remove them and root them out. Remember that. This is talking about the seed that came forth from Lot, from his daughters, to remove them and root them out, and to execute judgment upon them like the judgment of Sodom, and to leave no seed of the man on the earth of the days of condemnation. Now let's go to Deuteronomy 23. Well, what do you know? Whose people are cursed that can't join the congregation of the Most High? Amorites and Moabites. the seed, the two sons of the people that came forth from the two daughters of Lot, shall not enter into the congregation of the Adon. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Most High forever. Because this gives a different purpose, a reason of it, but they were cursed already, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when ye came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse thee. And so there was two reasons right here. Technically, there's three. They were cursed from the celestial intercourse in Jubilees. It tells them their judgment already, that they will be removed from them and rooted them out and execute judgment. And then it shows that these people are cursed and evil because they go on to not be obviously respectful to the children of Yasharallah, which honestly saved their life, because obviously they come from Abraham, right? Abraham saved Lot's family for pleading with them, and then they hired Balaam against them for a curse. So in other words, the Amorites and Moabites was cursed from the womb, just like we talked about with Ham's seed that slept with Noah's wife. Yes, Gad the seer speaks on this as well. Absolutely. Yes, the seed of Canaan was cursed. Yes, from seed, and the Amorites and Moabites were cursed from the seed. And we see that there's the whole seed as a whole was not, at least, and the men. Let's specify with that too. This is specifically talking about the men that carry seed of the Amorites and Moabites, because Ruth was a Moabite. And this is not talking about Moabite women. All right. So all of this now, in conclusion, Luke 17:32-33. Remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. Ooh. For me, this gives so much more context to Lot's wife, because in layman's terms, it's just, oh, don't look back. No. Now what we know, this is not just saying don't look back. This is saying if you are part of the second Exodus, remember, it wasn't that she looked back just simply. It's the fact that she looked back for family members. Think about that. Doesn't that add purpose to not looking back? Oh, where's Johnny? Where's Sarah? Where's anybody in my family? You looking back, the angels know who they're supposed to come get. If he comes and gets you, and you turn to the angel and says, well, what about Johnny? That's what he's talking about. Doesn't that change the story? This isn't just, oh, looking back at the world, looking back at traditions, looking back at your city burning. This is you turning back for your family's life. Why do you think it says, remember Lot's wife, whoever will try to save his life will lose it? Because that's what Lot's wife did. She looked back to save her father's seed, and she lost hers. That's what it's talking about. Doesn't that add some context to it? If the angel doesn't take someone from your family, then they're not supposed to come. Remember that message. If you turn back and question the angel, you miss the point of Lot's wife. Yes, it can be a hard one for a parent or someone that it could be your spouse, could be your mother. This is the details of lost, do not turn back, a lost wife. I can see so many people doing this because they don't fully understand don't do what lost wife did. They're thinking about looking back on the sinners, looking back in traditions, looking back in the world. No, this is talking about you trying to preserve life. That's why it's connected. Everything is set up on purpose. Remember, let me let the screen go back. Why you think verse 33 is stated that way? Remember Lot's wife. Whoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it. Whoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. Do not try to save life. It's not on you. Remember this, because I'm telling you, this is going to get everyone, because people don't get it. This is a very big part of I wanted to make sure you understand it, because every single person is going to have loved ones left behind if you are blessed enough to be carried away by angels. Be strong. They still will have opportunity. This isn't as bad as Sodom, that brimstone's coming on them. There is still going to be a remnant that will be able to be beheaded for his namesake and be able to make it to the millennium reign. So it's not going to be as bad as in the days of Sodom in the sense of judgment for those that don't make the second Exodus, because there is an opportunity of redemption. But it is not on you. It is not on me to turn to the angel that's gathering you and say, bring Johnny. Don't do it. That's what Lot's wife did. Okay. That being said, let's move on. All right. I told my wife after I was explaining it to her, I was like, I don't think you'll turn into salt like Lot's wife. And my wife was like, well, maybe you will. I was like, you're right. I don't know. Maybe you will turn into salt if you try to tell the angel to go back for somebody else. Maybe you will. Who knows? Yes. Pray for everybody now, and even pray for them. If I'm just naming little Johnny, I don't know. If little Johnny is left, you still can supplement prayers for them after your departure, if you are blessed enough to do so. Okay, so 20 is reading all the way through, very short chapter. Let's get it. 20, verse 1 through 17, the full chapter.
Genesis 20. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country, and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, she is my sister? And she, even she herself, said, he is my brother? In the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this. And God said unto him in a dream, yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart. For I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, know thou that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. Therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning, and called all his servants, and told all these things in their ears. And the men were sore afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham, and said unto him, what hast thou done unto us? And what have I offended thee, that thou hast brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou, that thou hast done this thing? And Abraham said, Because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet indeed she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is thy kindness which thou shalt show unto me. At every place whither we shall come, say of me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep and oxen, and men servants, and women servants, and gave them unto Abraham, and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before thee. Dwell where it pleaseth thee. And unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes, unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus she was reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants, and they bare children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech, because of Sarah, Abraham's wife.
All right, so this is really similar to the story in Genesis 12, when Abram went into Egypt, and that's where they got Hagar, and we covered all that in chapter 12. So I'm not going to really talk more about it. The story is the story. Just leave it at that, okay? Let's go into the last chapter of this Torah portion, Genesis 21. Going to cut it in half, 1 through 13, and then 11 through 15.
Genesis 21. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived, and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew, and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice. For in Isaac shall thy seed be called. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed.
All right. First thing I want to point out here is we talked about the meat and the milk. Another correlation I see with meat and milk is when you read, it's I don't know, a cultural tradition, but when a child is weaned, that they have a feast. Think about that. They have a great feast the day that Isaac is weaned. And what do you eat when you have a great feast? Meat. Just want to point out that they celebrate when specifically a male is weaned. It's like celebrating getting off of milk. All right. And we see here that right here, and Sarah saw Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. So we see, hey, that's pointing at Hagar, but I'm going to read a verse in Jasher that specifically points out that there was some friction going on between, we know the friction between Sarah and Hagar, but there was also some friction between Isaac and Ishmael as well. But I have Jubilees 16:13 first, so let's read that. Oh, this is just pointing out that in 16:13, verse 13 here, that Isaac was born in the middle of the month of the third month, which was festival of first fruits of the harvest, which was Feast of Weeks, Shavuot. That Shavuot was, Isaac was born on a feast day, Shavuot. Just a little fun fact there in Jubilees 16:13. Now let's go to Jasher 21. Jasher 21:11 through 15. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, was grown up in those days. He was 14. That's grown up in those days. He was 14 years old when Sarah bare Isaac to Abraham. And Alahai was with Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and he grew up and he learned to use the bow. Remember that Ishmael was an archer. We'll see that again. And became an archer. And when Isaac was 5 years old, he was sitting with Ishmael at the door of the tent. And Ishmael came to Isaac and seated himself opposite to him. And he took the bow and drew it and put the arrow in it and intended to slay Isaac. So there was some mocking or friction between Ishmael and Isaac that wasn't necessarily safe for Isaac to be around. And I'm pretty sure Hagar wasn't putting in good words for Sarah and Isaac in Ishmael's mind as well. So, and then Sarah saw the act. So remember, it says Sarah in the Masoretic says she saw Hagar mocking. But let's listen right here. And Sarah saw the act which Ishmael desired to do to her son Isaac, and it grieved her exceedingly on the account of her son. And she sent for Abraham and said to him, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for her son shall not be heir with my son. And for thus did he seek to do unto him this day. So to back up Sarah, she had a valid point. This was it was more than mocking. So this was more of the stuff that was going on that Sarah was like, something's got to change. We can't live amongst each other anymore. All right. All right. We're going to finish it off 14 to 33. Let's read it. Reset it on me.
And because of thy bondwoman, in all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice. For the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread and a bottle of water, and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water was spent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat her down over against him a good way off, as it were a bowshot. For she said, let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him, and lifted up her voice, and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad. And the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, what aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand. for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother.
Oh, no. I was just highlighting Archer. Don't reset on me. Of course you did. Let's see.
Captain of his host spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. He grew, and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I wot not who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen, and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, For these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because there they swear both of them. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba, and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days.
All right. I'm going to read in the Targum, chapter 21, of course, verse 14 through 18. It reads a little bit different, gives a little bit more insight to Hagar's struggle in the wilderness. All right, let's go to that. All right, so this is 21. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to read 14 through 18 and then 31 to 33 from this chapter in the Targums that I feel like gives a little bit more insight. And Abraham rose up in the morning and took bread and a cruse of water, it's like a canteen of water, and gave to Hagar to bear upon her shoulder, and bound it to her loins to signify that she was a servant and the child, and dismissed her with a letter of divorce. That's actually really important detail there, right? It's required in Torah. And she went and wandered from the way into the desert, which was hard by Beersheba. And it was when they came to the entrance of the desert, they remembered to wander after strange worship. And Ishmael was seized with a burning thirst. So Hagar went back into strange worship that she learned in Egypt. And this is why they were struggling for thirst and was punished initially. Let's finish reading. And drank of the water till all the water was consumed from the cruse. And he was dried up and withered in his flesh, and she carried him and was exhausted, and she cried to the fear of his father, and he answered her not, obviously crying to the Most High. And she laid the youth down at once under one of the trees. And she went and sat on one side and cast away the idol, or strange worship. So she, I guess, repented. In other words, she repented of the strange worship, and removed from her son as the distance of an arrow from the bow. For she said, I am not able to see the death of the child. And she sat over against her son and lifted up her voice and wept. And the voice of the youth was heard before the Most High for the righteousness' sake of Abraham. And the angel of the Most High called to Hagar from heaven and said, What to thee, Hagar? Faint not, for the voice of the youth is heard before the Most High. Neither shall judgment be according to the evil which he will do, but according to the righteousness of Abraham is mercy upon him in the place where he is. Arise, support the child, and strengthen thy hand in him, for I have set him for a great people. So the righteousness of Abraham is what saved Hagar in the wilderness. And, he did already make the promise, so he was going to fulfill that promise as well. But it was all done through Abraham. All right. Now we're going to go down to 31 to 33, same chapter. And this is, let me see. All right, this is just showing, it's called Beersheba, but in here it's called something different. So I just wanted to point it out. And therefore he called the well of 7 lambs. I don't know if that's English for Beersheba or what. I don't know. But it's called the well of 7 lambs. Just wanted to point that out because there they did swear, and they struck a covenant at the well of 7 lambs, and Abimelech and Phicol, the chief of his hosts, arose and returned to the land of the Philistine, and he planted a garden, a paradise, right, at the well of the 7 lambs, and prepared in the midst of it food and drink for them who passed by and who returned. And he preached to them there, confess ye and believe in the name of the word of Hayah, the everlasting Elohim. And once again, I love the Targums at times because they give a second witness to Jasher, because the only other place that actually says that Abraham did this in the garden of by the well is found in the book of Jasher in chapter 22, verse 11 through 13. And Abraham planted a large grove in Beersheba, and he made to it 4 gates facing the 4 sides of the earth, and he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, he entered any gate which was in his road and remained there and ate and drank and satisfied himself and then departed. And the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men that passed and repassed, who came daily to drink and eat in the house of Abraham. And any man who had hunger and came to Abraham's house, Abraham would give him bread that he might eat and drink and be satisfied. And anyone that came naked to his house, he would clothe with garments as he might choose, and give him silver and gold, and make known to him the Most High, who had created him in the earth. This did Abraham all his life. Unbelievable. Abraham, such a righteous man. And just to show just some of the pure acts that, I mean, what did he get out of doing that except giving glory to his heavenly Father, giving away his riches, food, water, silver and gold and given the message of the glory of the kingdom to all the sojourners, the Gentiles and those that were not of his seed. And before I close out this Torah portion, I wanted to go back, and I remember this story midway after talking about the circumcision. And we see in circumcision that they're commanded on the eighth day of the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And then it talks about, if you read more into it, how you will be cut off from his people. And cut off is a bad thing. That's like death. And so I wanted to bring up one more story of the circumcision. In context, we see in Jasher 79 with Moses. Like, to show how important circumcision is from the old to the new. All right, 79. I'm going to read 8 through 12. And Moses rose up to go to Egypt, and he took his wife and sons with him. And he was at an inn in the road. And an angel of Alahai came down and sought an occasion against him. And he wished to kill him on account of his firstborn son, because he had not circumcised him and has transgressed the covenant which the Adon had made with Abraham. Wowzers. For Moses had hearkened to the words of his father-in-law, which has spoken to him not to circumcise his firstborn son. Therefore he circumcised him not. And Zipporah, that's Moshe's wife, saw the angel of the Most High seeking an occasion against Moshe. And she knew that this thing was owing to his son not having circumcised her son in Gershom. And Zipporah hastened and took of a sharp rock stones that were there, and she circumcised her son and delivered her husband and her son from the hand of the angel of Ion. Wow. And that being said, Shabbat Shalom. I pray this Torah portion was a blessing for you in your walk, to give you more understanding on how to be righteous. Next week, we'll start it with chapter 22 of Genesis, and we will continue our walk in line by line studying of the Torah. Thank y'all for joining me.